Today has been one of the most roller coaster days in crypto that I have ever witnessed. What? I mean, just take a look at this. The stock market added $3 trillion in a few minutes before losing multiple trillions of dollars again, and now it's making it again. Well, what happened? So the long story short is that some news was released that there might be a 90-day pause on tariffs on all countries, basically. First, it was all countries, then all except China. Then the S&P pumped hard. Then after that, the White House said, hey, we are not aware of this. Then CNBC rescinded their statement saying, hey, we are actually not 100% sure. And then the White House officially called it out, and the S&P lost $2.5 trillion worth of market cap in just 22 minutes. Actually, some really, really crazy numbers. Never in history have we seen something like this. Just think about how much money that is. Just one headline swaying markets by over $6 trillion. And it was basically a White House advisor, 𝗕𝗂𝗧, who was taken out of context a little bit. So for what I've understood, he had an interview, I believe yesterday even, or maybe earlier today. And a reporter asked a question about whether or not this could be done. And they just presumed this was now an option. Again, this was officially the largest 30-minute swing in market cap history. You can't make this up. And the funnier thing is the largest swing ever based on false news or fake news or manipulatory news, whatever you want to call it. The way I always see these announcements is somebody got really, really rich and probably ain't nobody going to jail for all this scamming and kabambling. Another big part of the day, though, has been everything to do with these negotiations of tariffs. I'm trying to fix the camera here. If we take a little bit of a look, let's just quickly see if we can scroll through. You can see Donald Trump just said the United States has a chance to do something that it should have done decades ago. Don't be weak. Don't be stupid. Don't be a panican. A new party based on weak and stupid people. Be strong, courageous, and patient, and greatness will be the result. With China quickly afterwards stating, President Trump threatens an additional 50% tariff on China if they do not withdraw their 34% tariff increase. Actually, China later on said they might be, here we go. Restricting exports of 7 rare earth metals to all countries, and just basically, more headlines. European Union proposes 25% tariffs on U.S. goods. President Trump cancels press conference with Israeli Prime Minister after he flew in to negotiate new tariff deal. Zero Hedge says, I've been negative, but now I'm bullish. Time to start scaling in. That's a quote from the Goldman Sachs head of risk CSO, Josh Griffin, I guess that is. At the same time, we also have Larry Fink saying we are probably in a recession right now. And a bit more specific, he said he sees zero chance of 4 or 5 rate cuts this year. He believes the potential rate increase is still on the table. Warns that the White House actions could be far more inflationary than markets expect. And says he won't rule out another 20% market drop. I mean, I understand that when you have President Trump now screaming everywhere that more countries are now coming up to say hi and negotiate. Well, more specifically, Trump just stated oil prices are down, interest rates are down, the slow-moving Fed should cut rates. Food prices, can I take away this light? There we go. Food prices are down, but there's no inflation. And the long-time abused USA is bringing in billions of dollars a week from the abusing countries on tariffs that are already in place. This is despite the fact that the biggest abuser of them all, China, whose markets are crashing, just raised its tariff by 34%. On top of its long-term ridiculously high tariffs, plus, not acknowledging my warning for abusing countries not to retaliate. They've made enough for decades, taken advantage of good old USA. Our past leaders are to blame for allowing this and so much else to happen to our country. Make America great again. Now, when you really start thinking about it, though, this battle is quite interesting because if Trump really goes through with this, which he kind of seems like he will from the past statements here, that could actually mean a 104% tariff on China, which obviously is very, very crazy. And also, if you take a look at the Bitcoin or XRP price, XRP went as low as $1.61 on some exchanges, perhaps even lower, then back to $2, then back to 170 something. Right now, I checked, it's back to 190 or something like that. So it's really just all over the place. Bitcoin, 74,000, 81,000. It's right now back at 79,000, I think, something along those lines. Just really, really all over the place. I think some traders are just having a field day. They must be loving all this right now, especially if they've got some crazy bots running or whatever. I'm just in the middle thinking, man, I'm happy I bought some XRP on that dip. I'm happy I added a bit more crypto. But damn, is this a crazy situation that we're in right now. The fact that we have BlackRock CEO saying we're in a recession, the fact that we have 3 days of the market just making these crazy moves, the fact that nothing just seems to make sense anymore. It's a very, very interesting situation, ladies and gentlemen.
You've heard me talk about trends that will basically define the next cycle. One of the biggest ones is ZK technology. And there's specifically one play that is launching this quarter that is very interesting. Take a look at this. Trustless decentralized networks like Ethereum are great, but they need to re-execute transactions to verify their correctness, which is very inefficient. But through ZK, you can verify transactions without re-execution. And then specifically ZK rollups scale Ethereum, but they lack the right infrastructure to generate these proofs efficiently. And this is where ZK Cloud comes in. I mean, ZK rollups can scale Ethereum, but why else does it matter? Why is ZK so important? Well, they can make all the world's data and computation in Web 2 or 3 verifiable in an easy manner. You can see some examples here about ZK, but it basically opens up an entire new world of bringing privacy and verifiability to the masses. But the biggest issue is computational power. ZK Cloud makes it 95% cheaper and more efficient, powering the future of ZK at scale. It's basically the AWS of ZK. They basically bridge both worlds, and then the backbone that generates these ZK proofs, albeit in Web 2 or Web 3. Now, as it currently stands, there's a pretty massive opportunity with ZK Cloud because you can earn proof before it even launches by renting a ZK compute node and earning rewards that it generates. And this is basically one of the few ways to get some early exposure to a major new infrastructure project without the need to buy and maintain your own hardware. Now, these are the type of projects I'll personally be watching, as they're making some pretty big steps, and their mainnet is launching any day right now, basically. And so it's basically the easiest way to get in early and start earning some mainnet tokens right now. It'll basically be monthly unlocks after TGE. I've got a link down below. It's definitely worth checking out. Just look into it or so before the real hype or rush starts.
Then again, just to continue on for a second, when I tell you this news is just crazy, it really, really is. Man, I can almost not even get the words out of my head anymore with the amount of things that are going on in just the past 24 hours. S&P 500 basically flat. The Dow Jones still actually down 0.7%, but then the NASDAQ up 0.5%. What? And if you're wondering why this is so scary, tariffs on their own are not actually a bad thing at all. There's almost always tariffs in place. It's just about percentages and how retaliatory tariffs in the end might work. It also to do with imports and exports. And right now there's a big drama going around. I might show it to you in a second about how exactly they calculated what reciprocal tariffs should be, how high these tariffs should be just in general. But there's a very interesting point here that I would say that this is the most crucial part of everything. BlackRock CEO says he worries the White House's actions are much more inflationary than the market expects. Now, why is that important? The long story short is that the whole battle for the market and how it moves has to do with inflation and interest rates, or basically how to keep inflation intact and have a steady, let's just say around a 2% inflation or so. If they are saying we have no inflation, not going to cause anything, the inflation now spikes, for example, maybe they'll have to move the interest rates significantly more, causing again another massive amount of stress on the market. But actually there's a second part, and that is the one just below that. These two go hand in hand. The BlackRock CEO, Larry Fink, says he is troubled that the U.S. is not a stabilizer as a country. We are destabilizing now. Now, the reason I'm saying this is so important is because usually the U.S. is the most steady one. It always works basically easy, flawlessly, whatever. And all these other countries are basically fighting back and forth. But right now, the U.S. is all over the place. It's gotten the biggest move in the stock market ever. It's destabilizing also from the perspective that, well, if they're just going to fight these battles now with all these countries in the world, that's bad for business for a lot of companies at least, right? Especially if we look at statements like what we saw just now, Apple planning to source more iPhones from India now. Just the whole economy is shifting in every single sense based just on this. Very, very interesting. BlackRock CEO and chairman says 20% market drop in 3 days has impact and potential ripple effects on clients. Maybe we've not even seen the worst of this. Maybe things will only get worse because, again, we've not even seen the full effects of people losing just this much money. But also another addition to it, he says in the long run, this is more buying than selling opportunity. And this is where I again come into state, I fully agree with this. Over a longer period of time, you realize that it was most likely a very wise idea to just kind of turn your brain off a little bit. I'm not your financial advisor, but these are my thoughts, and just buy when it might not feel like the right thing to do at the time, but in hindsight, you'll notice it was probably wise. Now, again, I have some counter statements, which are, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know how crazy the tariffs are still going to get. And there's still a chance of a further drop, logically. I mean, even some of the more conservative predictions put the S&P at $4,000, which again would still be maybe like a 20% drop, for example. But the counter is, if 20% is the worst that we could go down on that front, but it's a generational bottom to buy, the most volatile day ever, with one of the worst crashes in 10, 15 years. I still think it is worth it. And again, there's so much going on right now, and I'll show you one last post here. Think about for a second that a fake headline, right, was able to make the entire market move up by $3 trillion. Basically, just wipe out all the negativity that we saw the day prior, or the last few hours, let's just say, the few days. Isn't it interesting just how quickly this all could be resolved if Trump or some other countries, let's just say, but let's say Trump really wanted to? So from that angle, just don't, in my opinion, right, don't think about it too much from the negative side. Think about it more as an opportunity rather than just a fearful thing. And I think ultimately you'll be all right. Again, just my own opinion, but the fact that one headline, even though it was fake, was able to move the market by this much means, yes, people are afraid. Yes, it's a lot of speculation, but just a lot of manipulation as well. Don't get shaken out. Know what you're holding. And that's about it, ladies and gentlemen.